meet you. Welcome to the island.
I know, it's beautiful. I'm very glad to be here.
Your first time here?
Oh, certainly. I've spent a lot of time in the Southeast. I grew up in Florida, but very, very little time in the Northeast, so it's been really nice.
I've already apologized about the weather.
I kind of like it though. I'm not much of a sun person. I like the sort of darker foggy kind of vibe. It's been really nice.
But you're an artist filmmaker, so I think you appreciate the poetic stuff.
Oh yeah, not like right at
dramatic, heavy.
the sunset is pretty remarkable in the heavy fog.
It is
Yeah.
stunning, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
So you're here presenting your film COG,
Yeah.
which is based on a work by David Sedaris.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank
For
you.
your second feature.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
I've been really honored and excited about it.
Amazing. So take it away and tell us how you met Sedaris, came across the work.
You know, I read the story when I was 15, so 15 years ago, and always loved it. It was just one of those things, you know, when you read something and you kind of talk to your friend, and whenever you guys sit around and be like, you know what made such a good movie, that story. You know, whenever anyone would be like, oh, I love David Sedaris, I'd be like, have you read that story of his? And people weren't as familiar with it because it's towards the end of Naked. It's the longest thing he's ever written. He's never recorded an audiobook because he says that every time they get to it in the recording sessions for the audiobook, he was like, I don't know, it's too long, you know, because everything he writes is normally good, like maybe 8 to 10 pages, and this one's like 30 to 40, I think.
So here's one from his book, please.
Yes, his audiobooks are, I mean, look, his printed books are brilliant, but if anyone, I rarely would ever say this to someone, but if they were like, well, should I like get the book on tape or should I get the, his voice is so distinctive, and actually, it was one of those things that I just, because of how much I love the way he reads his work, I just thought there's no point in trying to recreate that. And that was, so people had been trying to, you know, make a film out of his work for a long time, and he'd always passed on it. He was sort of like, well, why? Like, what would be the point? Like, what would the movie even be? And my approach was very different. It still took a very long time to convince him and to get through to him. But my approach was, I love this story. This one story I think is really cinematic. And I don't love it because it's your identity. I love it because it's just a good story. Like if you hadn't have written it, if I had stumbled on this in a magazine or a collection of short stories somewhere else or something, I would still want to make it into a film. Like I'm a great admirer of yours, but it's not my motivation. The motivation is what I think are the underlying themes of this narrative, and I think that's what drew him to it. He could see how this movie could have his name on it, but also exist as its completely different thing. Because if I tried to recreate what he does so well, what would be the point? You can go buy his books, you can go buy his audiobooks. Like you don't need a movie to do that for you. And so I thought, well, the movie should be mine. You know, it should come from my voice. It should come from my experience as much as it does from what I love about his work too. So I hope the film, to his fans, has elements of his spirit, elements of his point of view and his humor, but I also hope they get something really unexpected from it.
What was the one element or two elements that really resonated with you? And you said because you said it was cinematic.
Yeah.
So what element
You know,
about
part of it was a location, you know, being in these sort of like I thought it was a nice spin on the classic sort of American story, which is that, you know, angsty youth trying to go on the road, you know, and sort of find themselves, and instead this was a story about someone trying to do that, but getting the real end of it, which is like hard labor and you know, sort of a certain amount of not violence, but just aggression placed towards it. Like it was about breaking down idealism. I thought it took that character that we normally see, which is someone who finds himself, you know, someone who goes through an experience and at the end becomes a better person and understands life and is so grateful for the hardships he faced. But instead, it's kind of the other way around. It's this guy who goes through this and kind of hates every second of it, but gets stuck in it nevertheless. And I thought it was a nice spin on a familiar story. But on top of that, it dealt with religion in a way that felt really unique. You know, I'm not a religious person, but I think about religion a lot, and I really respect people with religious beliefs, and I think that there's a way to show, you know, where religion and I didn't want the movie to ever get too didactic, but where religion and sexuality intersect is a really complex place right now, in this country and around the world. If you look at France and other places where things are happening, and I thought there was an opportunity to make a movie about that without making a movie with an agenda, but a movie that just would hopefully hold a little bit of a mirror up to some of the problems. So it was all those, and I thought it was really funny, and I thought there was a great opportunity for great performances and great characters.
Yeah, so what surprised me about what you just mentioned during Morning Coffee with the filmmakers session earlier on was how hands-off David Sedaris was. Like,
yeah, I think I think a large part of even why he'd said no to projects in the past is that like filmmaking's not that interesting to him. You know, he's not that excited by being on a movie set or anything like that, which is rare. It's not common in a
Which is
lot
so
of people.
exotic for me.
I know, and for me, it's my love. It's what I
Right,
love
of
about
course.
life. So I don't understand it, but at the same time, you know, for him, I just think it was it was not that he did me a favor, but it was more of like I think he could tell I really wanted it, and it was just like, sure, go and do it. And it was I really think it was just kind of a one time. Maybe he'll say yes to another filmmaker at some point, and but you know, for something else. But for me, I think with my situation, I was asking for this unique thing. And I think that's why he said yes. And his whole thing, he stayed very true to that. He was like, well, if I'm going to let you go make the film, you should just go make the film. Like, why should I, if you're saying to me you want the film to have your identity in it, why should I be prodding my way into it?
Which is amazing.
It's amazing. It'll never happen in my lifetime again. Having said all that, you know, he was very, probably not, in terms of that sheer amount of just like access and freedom. But having said that, he also was a great resource. You know, he was, you know, we talked a lot. I would see him whenever he would come through town, and, you know, updated him a lot. We stayed in touch. We've stayed in touch since, you know, through it all. So he certainly wasn't an alien to the production, but he also really let us go do what we wanted to do with it.
So he was available but hands off.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You know what, for
His
a writer of
caliber,
his
yeah.
caliber,
Yeah.
and nevertheless someone that you admire so much, to have them trust you, it generally is what, you know, the movie took a long time to find the money. It took about 3 years, and which is
Even
short
with
for
his
some.
name attached.
Oh yeah, it's because it's a dark film and it's dealing with themes of religion and sexuality. It didn't matter whose names were on it. It didn't matter what actors' names were on it. Really, like, no one really wanted to have anything to do with it. And because those religion and sexuality are like the two things people want to stay away from the
Right.
most. Nevertheless, together, you're like you're exploding that exponentially. But you know, but really, it was the fact that he was trusting me so much is what kept me going and pushing the project through, even after all the rejections and passes and hurdles. It was sort of like, well, if he's going to be giving me this opportunity, like, why would I go do anything else? And in some ways, that was sort of the curse and the blessing. Having said it, it's a curse I gladly took on and I'm grateful for. And at the end of the day, you know what? I got to make the film the way I wanted to make it, and I'm proud of the final film, and it's what I intended to make, and I have no apologies for it.
And this is your second feature.
Yes, my first one was a movie called Easier with Practice.
So had he seen that?
He did. That was a large part of what
That's
got.
why.
Yeah. Well, what happened
Okay.
was I couldn't sort of get through to him through proper channels, so I went to a book reading of his, and I gave him a copy of Easier with Practice, and just sort of said, if you have. Easier with Practice is based on a writer named Davy Rothbard, who's another This American Life contributor. So they're colleagues in a sense. Davy's much younger than David, but they'd met and they were aware of each other and fans of each other. So it wasn't just some random movie I dropped in his lap. There was a little bit of context. Still, I didn't hear anything for 4 months. But once I gave him the film, I thought that's as far as I can go. You know, I mean, you know, the ambition can only go so far. And there's a point where you take ambition to where, like, you embarrass yourself. And I felt I skirted the line very closely in actually going up to him in a book reading. That was as close as I would ever get. And so I gave him the film, and by then I kind of was like, that was it, I'm good. I kind of cleaned my hands of it. If I hear from them, I do. If I never do,
Right.
then I can say I did the most I could. So hearing from him was,
Epic.
yes, very, I was about to say surreal, but epic is a way better word for it. And hearing how much he enjoyed the film. And they're similar movies in a lot of ways. You know, they're similar approaches, different movies but similar approaches. And so I think he understood what my aim was.
So the film premiered at Sundance.
Yeah.
And Siddharth just showed up.
Well, not just yet. We planned for him to do it.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, he hadn't seen it before.
No, he
that's
hadn't
what I
seen
meant.
it. Yeah, and I had talked to him about, are you sure you want to see it? Don't you want to see it before? And he was sort of like, well, I'm going to get to see it like in this great theater at this great festival. Like, why would I want to just watch a DVD of it or a online link? And you know what? Like, it was very nerve-wracking, but you know, he was also really excited about it and positive. So it's a strange feeling, you know. And it's interesting. You ultimately, you know, I learned, and doesn't come from. David's been so supportive of it, and he continues has even after he's seen the film. But I learned that like the only validation I'll ever get from the experience is from myself.
Right.
You know, like that I shouldn't even expect it from him And I say this about anybody I would work with in the future, whose work I'd adapt or anything. As much as you want that person to say, this is the very best version of my life, and oh my God, you did such justice. At the end of the day, if you told them, I'm going to go make a film and I'm going to try to stay true to myself, and they say, go do that, as much as you might want them to love the film, and I do think David's very happy with the film, but I realize the only satisfaction I'm going to get is from myself. And I'm happy with the film. And he trusted me to go make what I wanted to make. So at the end of the day, that's ultimately what matters the most. And it's a hard thing to do, though, because you're talking about someone you've admired your whole life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you have a distributor?
We do. The film is being distributed by
Nice.
Focus World and Screen Media. It comes out September 20th.
Marvelous, yeah.
And it'll be in about 15 cities, 15 markets, and VOD at the same time. So it'll be
Wow.
so it'll be very accessible film. You know, and the people who are his fans and the people who aren't. I mean, that was the thing, to make a film that could hopefully satisfy his fans and that desire to see his voice. Many of the scenes in the film are verbatim from the story. I mean, word for word, I didn't change a thing, you know, and but a lot of it's very different too. So I hope that the appeal will cross over, not just from his fans. You know, it's
Right.
not a film that was made exclusively for the people that are familiar with
right.
who he is.
Right. What's your next project?
Can't talk about it yet. I'm working on something that we're hopefully going to shoot. But you know, it's very different actually to connect it to what we've been talking about. Both my films, I've owned and controlled the material. This is the first time I'm coming in on something that's already written.
And they were both written by other people. Both
Yeah,
your
but I
films.
adapted them and I
Yes.
wrote the scripts.
Okay.
And this is the first time I'm coming in on a film that I didn't write. It's a script that exists already, but it is based on a true story, and it's. Whereas with David, it was about adapting and making it my own. This story is, it's a very well-known story, and so it's a different approach, accuracy and reality and authenticity, where my goal with COG was to actually kind of throw all that out the window. It takes place in modern day, even though the character's 20, obviously David was 20 a while back. So with this film, actually accuracy is one of our main goals because it's actually more historical. And so it's just it's a very different approach. But hopefully I'll be able to talk about it soon. It's a really exciting project. It brings a whole new level of challenges and scope that I haven't worked in yet. So I'm excited.
Is it in pre-production stage or production?
No. Pre-production.
Pre.
Yeah, I'm meeting with actors,
Right.
you know, figuring out where to shoot it, you know, that kind of stuff.
So you don't know where it's going to be shot yet?
No, it'll be mostly soundstage actually. Having shot 2 films, they're all very location based,
Right,
where we're like
right.
in these big fields, and
Right.
this is a movie it's bigger in the ways of the cast is bigger, the amount of actors on the screen is a lot more, and the scenes are a little bit heavier, but it's smaller in that it's very contained. So it's just a very different kind of film.
Excellent. I wish you best of luck with it.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Very
Great
nice to meet you.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.